All right, we begin here. Judgment in the SABC case will be handed down on Wednesday next week. BEMAWU's legal representative, senior counsel Omphemetse Mooki, asked the Labour Court in Johannesburg to grant an order for the SABC to withdraw redundancy letters and engage in a fair process with the public broadcaster to pay the costs. He challenged the SABC to produce evidence that it consulted with unions on the selection criteria for the new structure, as well as severance packages. Advocate Mooki argued that the SABC had failed to engage in a fair consultation before issuing the letters.
I submit, my Lord, this application is in bad faith, it's contrived, Your Lordship should be dismissed. Your Lordship is not here to micromanage a consultative process. Your Lordship can't do that. And Your Lordship is not here to make findings on what the end result will be. Because it's consultation, not negotiation. It's not an agreement, it's consultation. Otherwise, we'll all be bankrupt before the turn of the next decade. Because everybody has self-interest. My learned friends, clients are only worried about themselves. Nobody, my Lord, has the wisdom to say, where do we take this organization from? If you start off on that premise, my Lord, then, my Lord, you can develop an organization. So we ask Your Lordship, my Lord, simply to dismiss the application.
The applicants say, we want to consult, for example, about the selection criteria, because that subject has never been placed on the agenda. Now, Mr. Carson says they made representations, and he makes a submission and says, this is not for the applicants and the SABC to agree. The SABC gets to make the decision. In a way, it does. But the law says that decision that you make as an employer must be made having followed a particular process.
BEMAWU's Hannes Dubuisson says that they want the redundancy letters that SABC management has already given to some of the employees to be retracted for negotiations to take place.
The SABC has already agreed to consult. That is after we filed our application. The reason why that application was not withdrawn is because the SABC previously undertook to properly consult. We then removed that application from the roll, and what happened thereafter was our members were served with termination and redundancy letters. What we want the court to pronounce and is that there will be proper consultation. That offer that has been made by the SABC of the 30 days must be made in court order. And then the major issue and stumbling block at this point in time is the fact that those termination letters are still valid. It has not been withdrawn. That means that the SABC's decision, which they've taken on a flawed consultation process, has not been reversed. And that is an untenable situation, because we cannot continue to, that would be consultation in bad faith from the SABC side, because clearly they've got an end goal in place. They just want to take us along another road to that. So if the SABC is sincere in their attempts to consult meaningfully and genuinely, those letters must be removed.
So we heard the lawyers representing the union discussing the fact that this could possibly be a ploy to remove the steam that's already gathered and all that has been happening around this section, and only to then reinstate the letters at the end of the month. And we've also heard your lawyers just speaking about the difference between a negotiation and a consultative process. Please talk to us about those arguments.
We know, and we've never asked the SABC to negotiate on anything. We know it's a consultation process. We know what's the nature of that process. So the SABC has misrepresented facts in court if they have said to the court, and they have said to the court that they think that we want a negotiation process, which is not true. So yes, we want proper consultation. We've never said that it should be a negotiation process. process. The issue around the trust relationship and so on, that is based on the fact that the SABC previously has said that they will consult with the previous application, and then they issued people with letters. So naturally, there is an issue around trust around that. There is not, and there is nowhere in the papers, as has been eloquently argued by our counsel, there is nowhere in the papers any indication whatsoever where we said that there is a total breakdown of the trust relationship between employer and employee. Of course, there is a lot of concern on how the SABC is handling this matter, and that is why we are here. That is why there are people on strike at this point in time. So the SABC can very easily resolve this issue by simply withdrawing those letters, even if they want to do it on a without prejudice basis, and come with an open mind to then consult with us. They are not robbed from that opportunity.
Well, earlier on, workers and some political parties joined lunchtime pickets. The Communication Workers Union-CWU also handed in a memorandum of demands to the SABC's Chief Operating Officer, Plaatjes.
Our demand are as follows. One, for us to be able to without any prejudice immediately. Secondly, you see, comrade, what they are doing, they want to come to you and say, we have given unions opportunities and they failed. They want to come to you and say, unions were not progressive in those meetings. They want to come to you and say, we are delaying these meetings, so we want to go in. We'll go with you. Yeah. We don't want to give a room for criticism. But we are saying our second demand, there should be room for an extension of 30 days should the parties make a reasonable request.
We take this very seriously, and Aubrey, we will respond. I will try to meet at 12 o'clock. As you know, we're waiting for the Labour Court decision as well. If that is after 12, then it will be after 12 that we will respond. But I will respond on Monday with our response to your demands. Okay. I also, earlier, you called on that, and I accepted that in terms of your call and prayer for unity. And I pray that we will continue with that spirit as we go into the next month of negotiations around this issue.
My colleagues, it's tough, but I trust that God is with us. I was there in court alone, and of course BEMAWU president was there, and our senior counsel. Our senior counsel, when he took to the podium, I was very proud. He was calm, he was basing his arguments on facts. I can say we have a bright future. Black excellence was demonstrated in that court. There was no arrogance.
We want to tell the workers, as the Congress of the people, we will stand by them. We will fall with them. Comrades of the union, please keep it up. We are behind you. Don't get tired. We will never ever allow a situation where this place must belong to somebody.
So there was an
This is our SABC. Amanda!
All right, we're now joined by our reporter, Mbalenhle Mthethwa, who's outside TV Park for us, where those lunchtime pickets have been taking place. A very good afternoon to you, Mbalenhle. All right, so let's go through the latest. SABC staffers doing lunchtime pickets. Those have been continuing as was promised by Labour Union CWU. And we also understand that the Labour Union BEMAWU has asked the Labour Court to grant an order for SABC to withdraw those redundancy letters. What more do you have for us at this point, Mbalenhle?
Good afternoon, Flo. Yes, indeed, that is true. Workers did gather outside here in an attempt to really just sway management, and in also just trying to force management to retract those redundancy letters that were issued to workers as early as the 13th of November. We understand that they have vowed, union leaders have vowed rather, to continue protesting despite the outcome on Monday. We understand that judgment has been reserved in that court case between the SABC and Union BEMAWU. We understand that it was initially supposed to be handed down on Wednesday. However, it will now be handed down on Monday. And that is why we heard the COO, SABC COO, just saying that she will respond to the memorandum of demands that was handed over to him by CWU once he's actually seen or had a chance to, interact with the judgment which we're expecting to be handed down on Monday. We know that some of the demands that have been made by BEMAWU is that, they want the SABC to retract those redundancy letters, and they are essentially saying that if the SABC is to truly consult in earnest with unions, they are to then retract those letters so workers do not go into this 30-day suspension with a cloud hanging over their heads, and also feeling as though there's a target. There are also some fears that were actually ventilated at the Labour Court that the SABC could essentially just go into this consultative process with the intention of reinstating these letters at the end of the suspension with a date change. So essentially the whole process is about restoring, asking the courts to intervene and restoring trust between the two parties and forcing the SABC and the unions to sit down and have a proper, meaningful consultative process that could potentially lead to a change or maybe a reduction in the number of retrenchments that we have seen so far. We understand that the SABC plans on cutting at least 400 jobs, permanent jobs at the SABC, and the concern is that, and the wish of the unions is to have that remove all the retrenchments removed. However, if they can, they will also like to reduce those, as we have seen in the arguments in court where the lawyers representing BEMAWU said that the consultation process only entailed the newly proposed structure and did not go into detail and did not detail some of the very important issues which included the criteria in which the SABC had deployed or employed in order to select the people who have now received redundancy letters, and as well as a reduction process or negotiate a reduction of the number of retrenchments, or even maybe just discuss a possible payment of severance packages. So that's what we've heard so far. We've also heard union leaders and some worker representatives speaking outside and addressing workers. One such individual is Sophie Mokoena, who is the foreign editor here at the SABC, who responded to something that came out of the court proceedings, saying that we understand that the lawyer representing the SABC said it is very peculiar that SABC workers are out on the streets and out and up in arms over the retrenchments when they said nothing and they were quiet during the years when maybe state capture or when rampant looting was taking place. And we heard Sophie Mokoena just defending SABC workers, saying that the fight against management and mismanagement has been at the heart of workers since 2009 and has continued since then. We also heard union leader speaking about, some of the things that he finds quite peculiar with the new structure and the fact that, Channel Africa, which is a channel that is predominantly funded by the Department of Communication, where management has actually opted to retrench at least 80% of the workers there. They are actually concerned that this could be another opportunity for a repeat rather of what has happened at SOEs, where workers are retrenched and removed, and then that facility or that function is then been outsourced at inflated prices. And they're asking questions and they're questioning the fact that these workers are being retrenched at a time when SABC does not even pay for the salaries of those people. We know that the SABC has a financial problem right now and unfortunately has to somewhat embark on a restructuring process. However, they are saying that it is disingenuous of the SABC to retrench people who do not even who are not even a part of the wage bill at the SABC. Those are some of the things that came up. We also heard the union leaders actually calling on, saying that they would be going to the public protector and asking them to do a lifestyle audit on the SABC's board chairperson, and essentially just going on and just talking about how, the whole process has been done in bad faith and calling on management to consult in bad faith. Now, the issue of consultation as well as negotiation was quite a prominent feature at the Labour Court, where we saw the lawyers representing the SABC saying that the consultation process is not a negotiation process but a consultation process, and that the SABC will have the final say at the end of the day. And we also heard the judge also seemingly, being in agreement with that premise. But essentially the unions have actually, the lawyers representing the unions have said that while they are not trying to impose their own wishes or their own outcome on the board, they are in fact calling on management to consult in good faith and in earnest, and in order to not only discuss the structure but also discuss all the other very pertinent issues that they have raised and that they have brought up in court papers. But for now, it is a wait and see game for all of us. We wait until Monday midday to hear what is going to happen, if the court will in fact grant BEMAWU that interdict and also force the SABC to go back to the consultative process and consult on some of the issues that were brought about by the union. We understand that the union has said that there is a breakdown in trust, given the fact that the only thing that they did consult on was the structure and not the other pertinent issues, and the fact that the SABC went ahead and made an official announcement that it was going ahead and implementing Section 189 while there were still some issues outstanding and while they were waiting on feedback from management on questions that they had raised. However, we know that the unions representing the SABC said that this was somewhat of a time-wasting tactic, alluded to the fact that this might have been a time-wasting tactic. We know, based on the meeting that happened with workers within the SABC, that internal meeting that has been quite prominent in the media and has actually led to Parliament that led to an emergency meeting with the Minister and an emergency sitting in Parliament where this issue of retrenchment was discussed. We heard the COO at the time saying that the unions had basically worked against workers and had actually let them down because everything had been discussed with them and they unfortunately did not come back to them on time. But as we have heard now, that there were some issues that were outstanding when that decision was made, and now we wait and see if this process, this 30-day suspension, will yield any results in any way.
All right, Mbalenhle, thank you very much for that in-depth report and feedback. We'll certainly be catching up with her at a later stage as and when we have more updates on the issue of SABC retrenchment. Mbalenhle outside the SABC there for us.